Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is someone that's working right at the center of modern brand building and digital culture. Joining us on the show today is Sid Astir, Executive Vice President of Brand at VaynerMedia, where he plays a key role in scaling the global presence of the Gary Vaynerchuk brand. Armed with an MBA from Babson College and a powerful mix of brand strategy and operations research, he's built a reputation for turning content into a global impact. Sid has also led international content distribution strategies that have pushed the GaryVee brand into well over 10 plus countries, 15 plus languages, while designing paid media strategies across every major platform. The result? A massive expansion of the brand's global footprint and a masterclass in how modern brands scale worldwide. He's a podcast host, a builder who understands both the creative and the analytical side of growth. So let's get into the show. Thanks for being here today.
Wow, thank you for that. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I was listening to that. I was like, wow, that's so well written. Thank you.
I love it. Well, we're so honored to have you. And just to give a backstory too, before I get into some of the questions we have for you today, I got to meet Sid through Stan's Store. We had done a challenge with them a few months back, and we were invited to their headquarters in New York City. And so, anyway, we got to talk and meet at the very end. And I just felt like it was not by accident. Anyway, I invited him onto the show, crossing my fingers, hoping he'd say yes. And he did. So, we're very honored to have him today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, okay. So, first off, I think your background will be really helpful for our followers to hear. How was your journey from getting your MBA at Babson College to becoming this EVP of brand at VaynerMedia? Led you to focus on building brands instead of like the traditional corporate path that maybe you thought you were going to go on? Give us just maybe a little bit of a back.
I'll give you my background from the beginning. Like I'm originally from India. I've lived there for 27 years of my life before I came to the US about 12 years ago now. And in India, I was an electrical engineer and I was working for this company called Siemens. I was the analytical guy that was really building substations that is transformers, capacitors, a lot of those designing heavy engineering focused work for 3 years. And my goal was always to do my MBA from the US or from a reputed school. And there was a school in India that I applied to, which is ISB, which is another one where you have to give a GMAT, which is the exam that you have to give to get into a B school. And when I went for my interview for that B school, the person that was on the panel, they were like, everything about you screams entrepreneurship, but you're working at Siemens. So why should we bring you at ISB, which was the school that I was applying for? And that was the moment for me where I realized I was on the wrong path, and that's not what I needed to do. I was checking boxes. So I quit. I joined my family business, and I started running the business with my dad for 2 years. And we grew the business by almost 3x in less than 2 years. And I'd taken all my learnings from Siemens and brought it there. So I understood that I could adapt, change industries, and I was really an entrepreneur somewhere deep down. But the dream to do the MBA was still there. So I came to the US and came to Babson at a scholarship to really do my MBA and return back to my family business. And Babson is in Boston. So during the summer, I was looking for an internship in New York because I wanted to live in New York for 3 months before I went back to India. And the reason why I gave all this story was the plan all this while was just to go back to India and run my family business. And New York was supposed to be 3 months. And in that stint, VaynerMedia actually showed up at Babson and they were having this conversation with the undergrads. And I crashed that conversation and I asked a question. The HR really liked it. Long story short, I was at VaynerMedia for my summer internship in 2015. I'm assuming because I was the only grad student in the class of the residents that came in, the interns that came in, I was put on Gary's team. And then rest is history. I was an electrical engineer that had no social media background. I understood WordPress a little bit. And that time, websites were really important and driving SEO traffic to your website was important. And I've since that point, except for WordPress, everything else that I've learned on the job. I was an intern in 2015, became Gary's LinkedIn strategist in the first year, became Gary's paid media guy for the next couple of years, then became Gary's YouTube organic strategy guy for a few years. then became the brand manager for Gary, and then for the last 5 years, I've been leading the brand.
Wow. What a story. That's so cool. And your family, do they all still live in India?
Yeah, my parents still live in India, and my dad still runs the business.
Wow, what do you mind me asking what kind of business was it? Or maybe you
It
said it
is
and I missed it.
it's knitted fabrics, so we trade in knitted fabrics, and sell to brands like Zara, Lucky, Forever
Yeah.
21. We work with buying houses like Li& and Fung and Next and things like that.
Wow. That's so cool. That's
I'm I'm
awesome. Thank
I'm 5th generation entrepreneur in my family business.
Wow. That's so inspiring. Okay, you gosh, I feel like I wanna go off of the story you just shared too, more than what some of these questions are saying, but I am so curious. Was there something I think you had said you asked some questions in that initial, like, classroom or in that time when VaynerMedia came to your school that kinda, like, stood out? Like, was there any, like, follow-up process or anything that you had to do in order to, like, be chosen for that role? Because that just seems like such a prestigious role to be given.
100%. I really don't know why I was chosen, but what I would say is I consistently followed up. I had an interview in which probably 80% of my conversation was, I will learn that. I don't know how to do that, but I'll learn that. I'll learn that. I'll learn that. And I think that really resonated with them. And I think it was just a clear persistence from my side of like following up with the HR, with the people that I'd interviewed with, to consistently ask for updates.
Yeah.
And eventually, hopefully, they liked something that I'd said. And I started at Vayner in June of 2015.
Wow. I always say the phrase, what you focus on, you will find. And it seems very fitting to your situation too. Like if you want something bad enough, you find a way to get there. So you're proof of that. Okay, so maybe switching gears a little bit to now your role at VaynerMedia and like um just some of the work that you've done over the years, what would you say has helped the most when it comes to like scaling this brand globally? And I don't know, maybe we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm curious in a lot of the people that are listening that do have brands and myself included, like it's predominantly in the US and we have a footprint here. And when you think about taking that to like an international level, do you have specific challenges that you guys can remember that you faced? And like also tag along question to that, is there a time where maybe it's too soon for someone to think about globalizing? Like should they get to a certain place in their business here in the US before they go and do that?
I think there's 3 parts to that, so I'll break it down a little bit. The first part is, when is the right time? I would say when you feel comfortable with where you're at with one thing, then jumping onto the next thing is probably smart, and not immediately just going global with your content is a smart idea. Just being more thoughtful with what is the impact of that internally and externally? Are you doing it the right way, or are you shipping it and you're gonna regret it because it'll be taken out of context, which is the perfect segue into the second piece, which is the biggest challenge of going global is the context. Just translating your content in different languages doesn't really impact. And this is where, like, the way that we did it for Gary's brand was we found people in the local markets that actually were proofreading things before they went live. Our Arabic content lead lives in Armenia, and he was reading all the content and then publishing it. It wasn't done automatically, or it wasn't automated. It was very human first approach. At the same time, they're also bringing in the cultural nuances of like, it's Ramadan and like we need to make content around that, or things wherever there is an opportunity to make culturally relevant content, those opportunities were brought forward. And also at the same time being very respectful of the cultural nuances and like not posting things that might not be relevant in certain cases. And a lot of times, like, we would post Gary's content around trash talk and garage sailing, and they would not be relevant in certain countries. But then we would pivot it in terms of what's locally relevant for that
Okay.
country and how they can utilize that for their benefit. Because at the end of the day, it's all about just the arbitrage in the conversation. So those two pieces. But the third piece, which is why should you localize. And that's as simple as you need to understand that every different country, culture, language, wherever you go, they have their own platform sometimes, their own workflow sometimes. When you think about, for example, in China, they have completely different platforms, Weibo, WeChat. When it's in Japan, Line is really important. And when you're in India, there's other platforms beyond. TikToks doesn't even exist in India. So things like that, where you need to understand what's the platform where you can build your presence so that there is some ROI to your conversation, whether it's just brand awareness. Those are the three different reasons that you always want to balance when you're thinking about your global strategy.
I love that. I think that I mean, there's people that will definitely listen who will resonate with that and think about that as, like, next steps, but I also know that there's quite a bit of people that are listening that are like, "Man, I still need to get myself out there." Like, I have listened to Jenna's podcast or I've followed her online for a while, and I've always, like, thought about doing it. I'm not happy with my current job. I think they would be interested to hear what you have to say around just starting and just putting yourself out there and not necessarily looking at someone like Gary and going, "Oh my gosh, he feels like impossible to even get even remotely close to where he's at. Like, I'll never have as big of an impact or voice because I'm almost his age and I didn't start," or whatever. Whatever story they're telling themselves. I know that there's people listening right now who are like, cool, good for Gary, but like, what about me? How am I going to even like think about globalizing my brand when like I can't even put myself out there enough as it is today? For your own journey and like even with people within your guys' network, like what have you seen has helped people the most just when it comes to creating content and maybe not even worrying so much like, is this content going to go viral? How do I get it to go viral? That kind of conversation.
I think the first step is understanding why you want to make or not make content. If the reason why you're not making content is just like you're conscious of making content and you don't want to put it out there to see what people will say, you feel people around you will have opinions about it, all of that. That's a, that's a lot of people feel that way. However, the second piece is what's the easiest thing that comes to you to like capture content? So whether that's some people like to write, some people actually document their thoughts on audio. Some people like to talk to the camera. There's different versions of what people like to do, and you can start there. The biggest, easiest step that anyone can take is starting with the least friction spot. What's the easiest thing that comes to you? Start documenting that. You don't have to post. Don't post. It's fine. At least start recording your thoughts, whether that's you just starting to write articles and not publishing them, or you starting to make audio notes and not publishing them, or you starting to make videos and not publishing them. As you do the reps, when you get to the 15th, 20th, 30th version of it, you will start feeling more comfortable posting them. And they'll start being published, and then you'll start seeing the reaction and changing your strategy. The reason why I say that strategy always works, for me, I always found it very uncomfortable talking to the camera. However, I always enjoyed conversations like these. And that is really the reason why I started the podcast, because for me, it's easier to have conversations with a human than with a camera. And I'm sure there's tricks and tips to you can actually do that. But it was the least friction way for me to do it, where I go to a studio, which is 10 minutes away from my office after work, and I record for an hour and I go home. I didn't have to do any work between that. And then that footage is available to me once I'm home. I'm investing time, I'm investing money, but I'm not investing my brain power in setting up the studio, setting up the lighting, checking the audio, all of that. I'm just
Otherwise, you won't do it.
Otherwise I wouldn't do it. So I'm reducing the things that I don't like doing and only focusing on things I like to do. And then everything that you don't like has some kind of infrastructure already built. So finding that and then going from there. So for example, if you like audio, do audio, put it in one of the AI tools that are out there. They'll write the article for you. Or as simple as use Google Docs. They Audio to text is even available on Google Docs. And even when you do an iPhone memo, like it auto captions your audio as well. So there's so many versions of that you can do. And then with AI tools now, editing videos and everything, there's so much opportunity out there. And again, If none of that, then just hire someone who can make the videos for you. You can have them edit them for you and even post them if you don't like doing any of that. So just finding the things you don't like doing and either delegating that to someone. But at the first step is to start from a point of least friction.
Yeah. That's like a master class in scaling a business too. I've found even just since my interaction with Gary Vee and his team, when we were at Gary Vee's headquarters and we were talking and we all got a chance to share our, struggles in business and what we need help with, I was just like, man, I don't understand why I'm still feeling so burnt out. And I've been doing this and I took even a break. I thought when I came back I would be like rejuvenated. But Gary and his team like so graciously were all sharing just yeah, of course, because you're repeating the same mistakes. Like you're taking on all these things that you don't even enjoy necessarily doing. And so I have found even just like these little tasks that in your mind you think, oh, that's not that big of a deal, right? Like editing or just posting the content or responding to an email. Like for me, it was a lot of logistical things that I'm like, I'm so capable. I'm so quick at it. Just in the last couple of months of letting some of those things go, it helps you actually be more creative and like even stronger in your field because I don't feel distracted and I know that like I'm in my zone of genius when I'm on a coaching call or I'm creating this piece of content. It's so powerful to think that way and thanks for sharing that practical breakdown for somebody to get started because I think all of us think about it differently and it might sound obvious to you, but I don't think it's obvious to everyone else. So thank you. What is the platform that you guys have seen on your side of things that is the most underrated for growth right now?
I would say that YouTube Shorts for sure has a lot of traction right now because it is definitely feeding the AI engines, and that's where like AEO, GEOs become important. And so I would say YouTube Shorts. However, I would say that Facebook is a very slept on platform. A lot of people have built some kind of following or brands or some traction on Facebook over the years, and then they've just forgotten about it. Versus it is one of the fastest growing platforms for Gary's brand in the last few
Yeah.
years. And even though he has a big following over there and he has a lot of traction there, Meta has just built a really interesting product there where you can also geo target people and limit audiences and back to the globalization stuff. There's a lot of potential with Facebook as well, but I would say YouTube Shorts and Facebook probably would be my top two.
That's cool.
Less talked about ones, obviously.
Yeah, it's cool you say that because since we left to your guys' office, I put people in place to repurpose my content on those platforms. And I'm, you hear it from me first, folks. This is not big numbers, but we've had like 1,300 new followers on Facebook and we're at 650 subscribers. We were at zero on both in the last 2 months. And so, I mean, it's something, right? It's not huge, but I am definitely noticing that both of those platforms, like you said, are almost like underutilized in a way. So that's cool to hear the confirmation. This is a question that I get asked a lot, and I'm curious when, and I don't know, maybe this is not something that you're as involved in Gary's side, but I'm curious, like when it comes to paid media, how much of his content is organic versus like how much are you guys promoting and encouraging paid media? And then maybe on the flip side, like when would you tell someone they should start investing in paid advertising for their content?
There's I think there's a couple of different ways in here, but like I'll answer the top level question. Like Gary's content is mostly organic. I wouldn't say that we sit here as a always on paid media strategy for Gary ever. However, what I would say is paid media is also an afterthought for us because Gary's not selling anything. He's totally just building brand. And the brand in 2026 has become even more important, more easy if you make good content because the followers are not important anymore or less important. The value of paid media comes in when your organic is struggling by itself. However, depending on what you want to do with the media, there are good use cases for using media as well. So I would say a good combination, but at least for people that are starting up that don't have teams, instead of getting an agency who's going to charge you a fee to do it for you and all of that, I'd rather you hire an in-house person that makes more content for you than you invest in media. But at the same time, that's a very blanket statement. without understanding what this person's business is trying
Definitely.
to achieve and things like that. So there is a world in which media is important. However, getting your organic strategy right will make your paid media work even more efficiently once you start driving it.
Yeah. I would agree with that too. And I think sometimes people, when they're new, think, "Oh, this is gonna be, like, the fast track for me to get further ahead," when in reality I know Gary talks about this even in his books, it's like, yeah, you gotta take your best performing organic content, and then you can add fuel to the fire, but, like, you need to figure out what works first.
Yeah, it's like you're deciding to spend, I'm just gonna make up a number, but $5,000 across an creative asset on your subjective opinion, and then you think that the results you're getting are good because they're ROI positive. However, if you had posted that creative on social and it had not done well organically, but then you would have seen the back end, you would have understood why it didn't work, where was the retention drop off. Okay, let me edit it, let me change the hook, all of that, and then reposted it and it crushed, and then you ran it as an ad. You could have seen a 10x ROI versus what you ran in the beginning. So when you're already planning to spend certain amount of money, you're driving it based on whatever you have that you need to spend against versus what's the best creative that's funneling in from the organic, that then you add your CTAs and things like that on top to then drive the best ROI on your ads.
Makes sense. And one of the things you taught us when we were visiting was each platform is giving you like a playbook of exactly what to look for. And they'll tell you when someone fell off, when they stayed on, when they engaged. Like they're giving you the analytics, but it's our job to look at that. And I think it's just been something, even like once a week, I've had to make a note. We need to take a look at this and leverage that for how we're going to plan out future content to get the feedback because it's not a total guessing game. Like they're giving us these tools, so we should use them.
Yeah, and it's also because it's in their best interest as well for us to be on the platform longer. So they want to give us as much information as possible, so that we make the best content, so that people that are consuming stay on the platform rather than go to another platform. And all platforms are competing with each other for our attention. So that's why they're trying to give you the most data so that you make the best content for that platform.
I love it. Okay, couple more questions and we'll wrap this up. What do you think separates a successful creator from maybe those who end up giving up?
I think it starts with like the least friction place to start content. If you go from the idealistic standpoint and you create a whole process for how you can make content and you don't like that, it's just going to be more and more work for you to do the same impact rather than the easiest way for you to make that content. And a version of that was for Gary when we were doing Daily V. Gary was just living his life, and we had a videographer follow him that was capturing all the content while Gary was doing business meetings and all the important things that he needed to do. He was not making content. And that's where the document don't create part came from. The other pieces, which to me, I think where Gary's brand wins the most is authenticity. The more you don't have to pretend to be a version of what you are, and the more you can just be yourself, the easier it'll be for you to keep doing it for the longest time. I've led Gary's brand for 5 years. I've never in my 5 years written a comment as Gary V without Gary actually giving me the post copy of like, can you post this? Gary has a text messaging service which has hundreds of thousands of people that he has on text. Nobody on the team is allowed to send a text on that. Only Gary sends it himself. Gary Tildate writes the post copy for every Instagram post that he posts real time. Like he will write it now and say, "Can you post this in the next slot?" Which again, we're always thinking about analyzing every piece of creative. So like sometimes it's like, "Hey, what if we post at 8:50 a.m. versus 10:57 p.m.?" So sometimes it's a slot versus Gary sometimes will write copy and be like, "Let's post it now." And just think of that small friction point of like Gary giving us copy and we posting saves him 5 minutes
Huge.
instead of him going into the platform, downloading the video, uploading it, writing the copy, hitting publish, then doing all the best practices versus we're doing that for him because we're all trying to make sure that he does the things that he's the best at and then we take over and do the things that we should do to reduce the friction for him to make the most content. So we're doing it for him, and he's created, obviously, the first part is he invested in a team to create this ecosystem around him.
Exactly.
And so everyone who's failing or is about to fail or feel like they're close to that, probably the first question should be, where's the friction point? Is it in the making? Is it in the understanding? Or is it in the post production and posting? And reducing those or removing those in the workflow could help a lot.
It's huge. I think there's such this like practice that people need to do of recognizing what are the things that light me up in this world and what are the things that I need to let go of, and being willing to say, hey, it's not like you wear a bigger trophy. If you're doing more of the tasks, it's actually probably the opposite. So there's such a big impact that can be had. And I just love what you guys are doing there. What is a project that you're working on right now that's really exciting you, or something maybe that's coming up that you'd be open to sharing with our listeners today?
There's a couple of projects I'm working on that I can't talk about, so I'm going to stay away from that. But the thing that I'm most excited about right now is all the AI evolution that's happening and how there's a new evolution every day and just keeping up with it and just exploring it. And I was literally talking to someone 5 minutes ago before walking in here. I showed him my family business website, which is a perfect wrap up to our conversation here. I built that website with a consultant probably 14, 15 years ago, and we've never changed the website. Yesterday, I used an AI tool to build a mock-up for the new website that I want to build, and it took me 3 minutes. And it's gone from needing a consultant 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and probably $20,000 and months of work to 3 minutes. And that's where the world's moving with AI, and how we can all just start learning more and exploring it and not be overwhelmed by it, just because all of them are going to do the same thing eventually. So just starting to explore it more. And to me, that's the most exciting thing that I'm working on these days, is just exploring all the tools and like learning and adapting and comparing different tools outputs and figuring out which one is doing better than the other and a lot of that stuff.
It's so cool. It's so exciting. And there's so many practical ways we can all be utilizing that in our online businesses today. Okay, so just to wrap this up, thank you, first of all, so much for coming on to the show. I didn't really share this in the beginning, but I have a very strong faith. It's a big part of like why I do what I do. And I just give God all the glory in my life and in anything that we've accomplished. I just like to ask people that I'm working with, is there anything specific that I could be praying for you about right now?
Not really. I just believe strongly in God helps those who help themselves. And I went to a Catholic school as a kid. So that was one of the first things that really stuck with me. And like, if you're trying to help yourself, God's going to be there. And I
Yeah,
believe in that really strongly.
it's so true. And we all are just trying to do the best we can. And I think you're absolutely right. Like he'll connect us with the opportunities and people that we need to accomplish what he set out for us to do. So you guys are doing awesome work there. And I was so fortunate to be able to get a sneak peek of that. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge today on the show with our listeners. And if there's anything that we can ever do to help you guys out, just let us know.
Thank you so much for having me.